What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are going to be doing a little lineup review from this recent NFL weekend. Not as bad as some of the recent weeks have been, but I'm still waiting for the big NFL win. I've had a couple good weeks this year, but not like anything great, not like Sheets has had. And waiting for the big one. But Sheets, I know you had a good day yesterday. Why don't you get us started off, and then if you want to pull up your screen.
Yeah, this was a really difficult slate. With the and I actually feel bad, that we did the video and basically the entire slate changed like as we hung up the phone, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like Taysom Hill and for openers, not to mention Mixon being out, not to mention Bridgewater being out. So look, I'd like to take the victory lap on the Saints Falcons under, but to be perfectly honest, I didn't anticipate. I was doing that based on the fact that Jameis was going to play, and I thought that they would be kind of like overhyped, So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to take full credit for the under in that game, because I don't know if I would have done it if Taysom Hill was quarterbacking. But so I was back and forth what to do. I was back and forth what to do with my cash games and my 2+2 thing. And I want to go over like all of it. So let me share my screen.
Sure. And then real quick, I'm just going to jump out and just, for me, I'm looking through my whole history while we're going through this. And the thing that's so bizarre is that I had an incredible condensing of points between the 145 and 165 range. Like almost all of my lineups, or 135, sorry, 165. But it wasn't like I was getting hammered on many lineups. It wasn't anything like that. I just couldn't quite get the right mix. And the truth is, it was a really ugly day. It was another really low scoring slate.
But we knew that was going to be,
Right. We did. You're right. Well, did you
play FanDuel?
I played like one or two lineups on FanDuel against.
I was going to wonder if you went 100% Taysom Hill if you did like a whole bunch of them.
I only played Taysom Hill there, but I did play one of my two lineups without. I think I had two different big ones. I think one of them had Mark Andrews in the flex. I tried to do a little different that way, just to do something different. But I had Miles Sanders. The biggest thing that cost me is I had Miles Sanders again, absolutely everywhere. And
all right, well let's first get to the again the most important thing is 2+2. We win the week again. We're freaking geniuses.
It's amazing. The most competitive. Why don't you remind them real quick what it is, just in case.
So the 2+2 league was great. Was created by this guy Ryan I. So I feel really bad for him because he literally gets last like every week. But he it's $1,700 for the season. So it's $100 a week, I guess. But everybody puts up $1,700, and it's a combination of kind of like cash and GBP, because at the end of each week they pay out a little bit for first and second. But then what happens is over the course of 14 weeks, they keep a running total of your scores from each week, like one lineup each week. And the top three make it to the playoffs where the scores reset. And then weeks 15, 16, and 17 are the 3 weeks playoffs. All the scores are reset. And the 3 people or the 4 people that make the playoffs battle it out for, the decent amount of it. So you have to, on the one hand, be conservative enough to kind of just keep on plodding along. Yet also, you want upside because you do want to win those weeks from time to time also to kind of keep afloat. So I've run really well with the actual cashing. And this week, this is what I ended up doing. I did end up going to Taysom Hill at quarterback. And I guess, third of the people, this draft percentages of the 11 people, obviously, in this. And that was fine. And I did go with Cook. And I went David Johnson, and I did stick with Jacoby Myers. I mean, I knew he'd be chopping. See, that's the beautiful thing about it is like everybody else in the tournament's taking him. It's really not that big of a deal, right? If they bust. And then what I did was I went for the 2 high-priced wide receivers. I went with Devontae Adams, and I went with my with my hero Keenan Allen. I mean, the guy's freaking insanity. Mm-hmm. I mean, he gets like 25 targets a game. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going with T.J. Hawkinson at tight end once what's his name, Galladay and Swift were both ruled out. I just figured though that he would be, just get a bigger target share, and he projected well, and I figured he would get owned, but I figured I'd do it anyway. And then I went Broncos, and then my one spec play, just he made it work, was Denzel Mims. I figured he would go nicely with Keenan Allen, and he was literally just fine. I couldn't be happier. Mm-hmm. So we ended up, again, in this particular tournament, you don't need to get everything right. I had 2 pretty severe snowflakes, and yet still we got there. We won by 6 points, and so we get what I get $375 for the week, and not only that, but I'm now like solidly in 3rd place. Like most important, I'm like 60 full points ahead of 5th, right? Because that's the bubble, like 4th to 5th. So, you know, I'm going to reduce risk a little bit for the last 3 weeks of regular season, hopefully get into the playoffs, and then move along. So with respect to the other GPPs, I did pretty well. I made like, what did I say, like 1,000 or something?
Yeah.
And we're going to get to the other ones, like the 5 max and 3 max. We did pretty well. But what we'll do is we'll highlight the Millie Maker. I have actually the Fantasy Cruncher, the lineup study here.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of lists like all of the lineups, what place they came in, and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right, it's going to have my player usage. So my highest owned quarterback and highest owned player by a lot was, drumroll, Tua with 37%.
Oh my goodness.
And Devontae Parker at 44%.
Oh my
I was
goodness.
all over that. Okay. But Justin Jefferson at 40%. So you might think that, you know, you got all this and it all kind of goes to hell. It ain't going to be so hot, but you know, you got 72% of Keenan Allen scoring 8 million fantasy points.
Right.
You're in kind of good shape.
Right.
Other ownerships, I guess, worth mentioning. Devontae Adams, I said 30%. But what's interesting is that, if you might notice, I had like 10% Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm.
I had like 0%, I think, Alvin Kamara, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I ended up going.
Yeah.
And it worked out rather nicely. Like in my top lineups. So you see like some of these funny ones, like this one, all, you know, as you might imagine, like the top 4 of them had Herbert with Keenan Allen, but like the run backs were kind of cutesy, right? I had Perrine at 1% at 4,400. He, you know, made 9 points, so he got a touchdown.
Yesterday was okay. He wasn't going to kill you yesterday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then these guys didn't really kill me. Like I thought I had Aaron Jones at like 0%. I had James Robinson at like 5%. They just did just fine. But this kind of was the hoodoo. This like, and you turned me on to this because I wasn't going to use as much of him at all. But Curtis Samuel at wide receiver. Remember, I was saying, okay, we probably want to play Robbie Anderson and the other guy, DJ Moore. And you're like, no, you were talking about Curtis Samuel. So I actually manually like upped him a little bit. That literally got him into what? I had 1, 2, 3 of the top lineups, right? They all had him.
Yeah.
So that was really big to have him at 5%. Justin Jefferson, he just barely got there at the end. I mean, with that touchdown, he was like donating the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Parker with 18 points, he hung in there. You know, even though Tua didn't do anything, Devontae Parker got there. So. What else in these top lineups? You know, I have top lineups, but we got a little Amari Cooper in there, and so that the Millie Maker. It's you know, just because your top owned guy, you know, like 37% of a quarterback is that totally busts. You know, that you only need one, and the Justin Herbert kind of like carried the weight. Now, again, did I need to have 44% Devontae Parker compared to like 2% he was owned or whatever the hell he was? Maybe not, but that's where
I don't think that was like the worst thing in the world. I mean, you know, and it started off good. You got, you know, the quick touchdown on the first drive. It looked like you were in business, but that defense just shut him down completely afterwards, and obviously they pulled Tua. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I like looking at some of these ownership. I mean, you went really heavy on Keenan Allen. I loved my issue is I loved Keenan Allen. I tried to reverse the narrative. I tried to play Mike Williams. I had Mike Williams 10%, and he was fine. You know what I mean? Like,
he was great.
Yeah, I mean, but if you don't play Keenan Allen, if you're fading that fade already, you're already playing from behind. And I wasn't playing where I was playing him to get where I was playing Herbert. Unfortunately, I used, which I had Herbert in about 15% of my lineups, but it was all, if I was double stacking, I was using either Allen and Henry or Williams and Henry. And I went a little too much Williams and Henry. When Bridgewater was supposed to be potentially playing, which we got the message, you know, back to back, he's Bridgewater's active. Oh wait, Bridgewater's out. You know, like in 2 minutes. I was really going to play heavily on that on the passing game of Carolina, which really did work out in general. I mean, Moore and Samuel were great, but you couldn't play PJ Walker with them, and the Lions simply just couldn't do anything. And I was looking for run backs everywhere. So Hawkinson was okay with his 10 point. I mean, it was whatever, you know, Marvin Jones at 9. There was just no Marvin Hall I took some shots on. All of my low end, all of my cheap receivers for the most part, other than, you know, Mims was okay, but nobody really got there for what I'd hoped for. I played, 65% Dalvin Cook. I ate the chalk. I had 25% Zeke Elliott. But I had 38% Miles Sanders, 25% James Conner, 28% of Mike Davis. So I got like just exposure to all these guys who just sort of like were blah, which didn't even kill me on this slate because some of those were still cashing lineups because there were so many points out there. And then I just went way heavier on Jefferson than I went on Thielen, and didn't get as much production out of the Cowboys passing game, which I literally had like a receiver from the Cowboys in basically all my lineups. So it wasn't quite enough. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I had any real sweat at the end of the first half of the games, or towards the end. It looked like things were going to be nice. Michael Thomas had a decent game at that price, and I had Thomas, DJ Moore paired with who was my tight end who was did well. I can't even remember off the top of my head. But I had that's the thing. I had Hawkinson basically in all my Moore lineups. It's just I just couldn't get the right mixes anywhere. It's the same thing, and I think I maybe want to narrow my ownership ranges going forward a little bit. If there's one mistake maybe I've made, and I'm not playing because I'm sort of playing as if I'm playing the 150 lineups in the Millionaire and all that stuff, and I didn't do that the last month or so. Yeah. But I'm still treating the ownerships a little bit too much that way. There's too many 10 to 20% or 10 to 25% guys. I need to get more guys between 25 and 55%, and probably a few guys who I want over 50%. Especially on a week like this week where you sort of need to make your stake. Like I played 40% Deontay Johnson, but at one point I was thinking like, wow, if I was really scripting this out, wouldn't I play like 75% of him? Because I think I feel so good about him. I just sort of talked myself out of it in favor of other potential receivers and didn't feel like I had a great flow or feel for the slate as much as I did on Wednesday before all the news came. So I don't know. It wasn't my best week, but I don't feel terrible looking back at the decisions. I pretty much, the goal was get some of the Minnesota passing game, get some of the Steelers passing game, get some of the Cowboys offense in all of your lineups. That's what I wanted to do. I did some of that. I didn't do it quite as successfully as I could have, I guess is the best way to put it.
One of the things I would say that I'm definitely getting better at, and again, I have to give it to, Saberson really helps me with this, is tailoring the lineups to the contest that I'm going in, right? I'm getting much better at that. And so like some of these, and I've been doing pretty well in these, like in these 3 max, like I cashed in the power sweep.
Right.
And this one I put in the 20 max and the power sweep. Right. And this one, as you see, is probably going to be a little less, a little less, a little less off the board. Right. This is going to have Giovanni Bernard, McLaurin, Boyd, Mike Williams, Andrew. By the way, Andrews was much less owned than we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened right on the day of the game because I was surprised to see that as well.
Because of I think it was because of Hawkinson.
But nothing had really changed that much for Hawkinson except for once the guys were out, it still didn't. I don't know. I was still surprised a little bit, but I hear you. I understand that.
And how'd you do? I got one top 100 in that 5 max thing that we talked about.
Yeah, I cashed in 4 out of the 5 lineups I had in there. It's not.
Oh, really?
But I didn't make anything. Nothing special. Just the low 160s or 150s, and that was pretty much it. Yeah, I didn't have enough CD either. If I was going to play the Cowboys, I played more of the other Gallup and Cooper angle. Just nothing quite went my way. But you look at it, and I like what you did. You really committed with the with Keenan Allen. And then you spread out some fewer ownerships, but you mostly were more targeted in the 30% above range. I know you weren't playing quite as many lineups, but I just think it was a little bit more condensed than mine, and that's something I'd like to do a little bit more.
Yeah, but this was enough. I played a bunch. I played like 29 Millie Maker lineups. I never played.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't realize.
Yeah, I played 29 of them. So
nice.
That's more than I
was
I was gonna play 20, and then I decided I wanted to force feed some more Tua without compromising my other ones. So I put like 5 more of Tua. And then what I did, I got to get in the habit of not doing this. There were 4 lineups that were in my others, like my 20 max and my whatever, that I just felt as though we're kind of off the board. So you know what? I'll just throw those in the Millie Maker also. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got to those extra 9. I'm curious how those extra 9 did. Probably not so well. But yeah, again, this is for me, like it was one of the tougher weeks for me process-wise because I really went back and forth because I was always, you were watching the news on Taysom because there was like even conflicting opinions. First, they were like, we're not saying what he's going to do. Then
Right.
they're like, well, maybe, Winston will get some reps. Then they're like, well, he's not going to. Then people were saying, well, maybe Peyton's just leveling everybody and Winston really is going to come in or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So I ended up like, you'll see, like Taysom Hill in the Millie Maker lineup, I think I had zero. I literally zero.
I think that's the actual correct strategy. Now the problem. So here's my thinking. And look, it didn't work out because he got hurt, and on top, and really sad news about Burrow getting hurt. I really like.
Oh, that was so bad.
That's a real bummer. But I'm looking back at it, and I'm wondering why some of these lineups. That's part of the problem. I'm cashing. I have Joe Burrow 30% of my as my quarterback. So that was my big thing because look, you're 700. What was he? He was 50 whatever hundred. Was he a little bit?
Well, I'll tell you. I remember at the end of last week, I thought Cincinnati was going to be the nut stack, and I ended up not playing it.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow is 700 more actually they moved the ball. No, I don't know if you watched it. He had like 200 yards passing in the first half. They moved the ball, no problem. They just couldn't get in the end zone.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't make field goals or anything. Anyway, but Burrow to me at $700 more than Taysom Hill just didn't see. The more I thought about it, I was like, this is a bad play that Taysom Hill did. I don't care that it worked out for those people. You have to realize that if he doesn't rush in for that second touchdown, I mean, you're counting on 2 rushing touchdowns. He didn't have I mean, what did he have? 4 fantasy points going into the like halfway through the third quarter or something,
Yeah.
I just don't think it was the right play. I know it might have worked out. I think that you're going to be better off with a guy like Burrow at a tiny bit higher price almost all the time there. And there was also Kirk Cousins, who was right there at a little bit, 100 more than Burrow, who had a good matchup against Dallas. There was just other guys I wanted to use. I did throw Taysom Hill into a few lineups, but I mostly they were lineups where I was going really off the board elsewhere. And I just, honestly, I liked Michael Thomas, so I wanted to play a little bit of that combination. But overall, Taysom Hill at really high ownership on this felt like a little bit of a wrong thing that sort of paid off the right way. I don't think it was the right way, in
my opinion. How did Ahmed do? I know I played him.
He had like 14. He got another decent start, but then they couldn't move the ball after that. That was the other thing that really frustrated me is I had, of my Herbert stacks, not to mention that I did have Keenan Allen, in a decent amount and all that. And Henry was fine. To have that combination was really good, actually. But then I had so much Jamison Crowder on the other side of it.
Right.
I really tried to take a stand on it. And I played Mims too some, but I wanted to take a home run shot on that game stack.
What happened to Crowder? Did he do any catches or?
He had like 1 catch for 6 yards or something or 2 catches. I don't know. So he had two fantasy points, 1 catch for 16 yards. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they're phasing him out a little bit, but it was frustrating.
Do you have any takes on like the football? You know what I mean? Anything kind of stand out for you, like football wise? I mean, like.
Yeah, I think Mahomes won the MVP last night. I think if Pittsburgh will have to be undefeated for Mahomes to even have a chance not to win the MVP. But I remember we talked about Roethlisberger at 30-1. I don't know what the numbers are today. I haven't checked yet, but my guess is they're going to keep going better and better until they lose a game. And Pittsburgh has a legitimate shot to go undefeated here. And if they do,
they play each other, don't they, in the regular season?
They play 1 game, so that's what they'd have to. That could be the determining factor. So that I thought was kind of interesting. I think that the best team in football. I do think the Chiefs are going to be the hardest team to beat, but it was a little bit strange to see. You had all these guys who couldn't practice all week on the Raiders, and the Raiders defense came out looking good. You know what I mean? And I just thought that was I thought the Chiefs would have won that game a little more handily. I'm not saying the Chiefs are so far and away the best team. I'm a little worried about their defense, which I wasn't early in the year. But I think that between them and the Steelers, they pretty clearly are the 2 best teams in football.
Yeah, so I had actually a couple of points. I didn't write them down, so I got to remember them. So first of all, the Aaron Jones is just not the bell cow over there. Every time I just think it's like Aaron Jones time, I see Jamal Williams get a touchdown, or at least they try to get him a touchdown. That was one thing. These are like random things that I noticed. Another thing I noticed, like you said, is I and this is like I'm really being biased, right? Because I've been like really watching Pittsburgh games because I've had them in Survivor. But the reason I've had them in Survivor is because they've been playing terrible teams, right? So I'm kind of like, I was watching them not against good teams, but and then I brought this up like after that first Chase Claypool game, like week 3 or whatever. I don't know where they come up with all these wide receivers, but like they're awesome. Like all
they're amazing. They've also got Ray McLeod and James Washington, who are 2 burners, who are their 4th and 5th receivers. You know what I mean? They've done this.
They are really good. They're still you can run on them a little bit, but they're still very opportunistic on defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good, and not to over dramatize, but that could be the game for the MVP. I mean, honestly,
Right.
obviously one guy has to stand out,
No, right.
that I noticed that. Um,
We should say something. What happened? How did Detroit? Did they end up getting shut out in that game? I mean, what happened?
yeah, so Detroit was really bad. They were. I mean, they were missing Galladay, but they had been missing Galladay, right?
Yeah,
And
they've been off for a
they were
second.
missing DeAndre Swift, but it's not like Carolina is supposed to be that
No.
great a defense. I mean, maybe Stafford's shoulder is worse than you thought. I don't. That's very possible. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, I've been saying that, why can't the Giants tank like a real team? But
Mhm.
meanwhile, everybody's like a half game out of first in the division.
They're going to win the division, man.
It's like crazy.
They're going to win the division. They have to. I mean, by the way, that's another thing I don't take this away. And I've been saying this you can go back. I've been saying this since I was at Roto Grinders for years, that Carson Wentz was now it's not that he's overrated. It used to be that he's the most overrated player in football, and I would just get blasted.
Now he's just the worst.
Because the argument was they couldn't believe that a guy who actually did this for a living didn't think Carson Wentz is a top 5 quarterback. Carson Wentz is not a bottom 5. He's not even. He might be the worst quarterback in football right now. No one's playing worse than he is. I don't see anybody. Even Baker. At least they have the running game to save Baker a little bit. But I mean, the funny part is, look, even Wentz. I mean, you've got the running back who leads the league in yards per carry on your team in Miles Sanders. You've got, even with the injuries, you've got this good young receivers. And then they even got Jeffrey back. They've got Goddard, a great receiving tight end. The line is not good, but it's not as bad as some of the other lines in football. And honestly, it's just, he is so bad. I just can't believe, like, when do you give up on a guy like this? That was another thought I had this week. But
New England.
New England's not good.
But not only that. I mean, not only is New England not good, I think that New England, like, next year is 2-14, right? I mean, like, what do they have? What do they have? I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. Look, that's what happens with dynasties, I suppose. The other thing, I'm really looking forward to seeing tonight's game with the Rams, and we're going to talk about that in another video. But to see, I mean, it's really fascinating to me because, I mean, the AB addition to Tampa, I think it's really amazing. I mean, I really do.
And you know what infuriates me about it, though, and hopefully it doesn't happen tonight. But my plan is the next full week we get out of AB literally the next game we get on a major slate. He's my main. I don't care who they're playing almost. His price is not going to catch up, and his ownership is not going to catch up with his upside. And I actually think at this point, every week that goes by, he's going to become more and more one of, if not the main receiver on the team. In my opinion, by the end of the year, especially in important games like this one, that you'll be seeing them running a ton of stuff for him. Brady obviously has trust in him, so that's a take I have going forward. I don't think you can really gain much from it tonight because I don't think he's going to be too low owned.
Who's the best team in the NFC?
Doesn't even matter, I guess, is the question. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like it's just so much weaker. It's so much weaker of a league. Who would you even say? I can't even think of who I would.
I still have this weird feeling that if Breeze is back, the Saints are just the best team.
They have a really good team. Like, their defense is really, people don't underestimate their defense, I think, a lot. And they've looked good against good teams. I mean, Tampa Bay being the best example of that. They haven't really had a bad game this year, like an embarrassing game. And even as we made fun of Breeze and how he doesn't throw the ball far anymore, he still leads the league in completion percentage. You know what I mean? Like, this is a good team.
And the Packers, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if like I said, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can anoint the Packers the best team in the NFC. I don't know, man.
No.
Like you said, maybe by default. But
and honestly, maybe even though Tampa's been just thrashed by New Orleans twice, maybe it is Tampa. Maybe it's just a bad matchup for them. You know what I mean? I don't believe
that's going to be. It's an interesting game tonight.
Well,
it's an interesting game tonight because, as I just mentioned, what's that?
If Goff was not the quarterback, I would say it's the Rams.
Yeah, you don't like him, do you?
I just know him. I've watched him play. It's what everybody else is saying about Foles. He's like a miniature version of that. He misses all these open plays. He floats passes. He has incredible talent in an awesome offensive scheme his whole career. that has allowed him to put up pretty gaudy numbers during a lot of these seasons. But you watch these guys play tough teams, and look, I mean, there's no better example than the Super Bowl. That Rams team was so much better than that Patriots team was, and that's just an example. Like Goff, when he gets in those big games, he can really struggle. And tonight, I'm actually curious to see, because I think both quarterbacks. We'll talk about this later, but they're going to really struggle. Goff and Brady struggle immensely when they get pressured, and that's what's hard for me to. Both these defenses create great pressure, so we should have a better feeling, I guess, after tonight, because I think these are the two of the teams in the conversation for it.
All right.
Maybe it's Arizona, by the way, too, which is really crazy. But maybe Arizona is the toughest to beat. I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a.
Well, I mean, excuse me. What about Seattle? I mean, like, it's
no, exactly. They belong right there too.
Yeah. So it's going to be. I don't know. I don't think the AFC is that much better. We'll see how it goes.
The depth in the NFC is strong. It's the overall, you know what I mean? It's the very top of it, which we don't even know who's at the top.
I mean, but listen, you mentioned it that with the KC defense. I mean, I knew that was going to happen yesterday. It was going to be the last team with the ball. I mean, the Raiders put up 40 against them the first time they played.
Right.
And they went up and everybody went up and down the field. Derek Carr looked like, Joe Montana out there, and Kansas City. I mean, they're look. I think about this a lot when let's take a team like, I don't know, like the Bears. Like the Bears have had a better defense than their offense literally since the day I was born.
Same here.
I cannot. And is it really because like a team like has an identity and they always just think that way?
Well, I mean, with the Bears, it's a little more simplistic, I think, than that, because I think that a lot of it is playing, half your games in pretty bad weather. So you're not going to try and build.
That's fair enough. But I mean, the Patriots managed to have big offensive teams. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
But I wonder, like, with the way the draft works and financials and things like that, can you have like a really good offense and a really good defense, or do you have to make a decision to front load one side of the ball or the other? Do you make the decision to kind of spread it out to have like an above average offense, an above average defense?
Right.
It's
interesting, but I mean, like last year would be an example where you had Baltimore, who was basically at the top of both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were best offense and best defense, and the Chiefs' defense early in the season actually looked like they were on that same path too, to be in that team this year. But Pittsburgh has I don't think they don't have the best offense, but they have a very good offense and they have an exceptional defense.
I'll tell you, man, I don't know if he gets voted MVP, but Big Ben's, earning my respect. You know what I mean? Like he's and look, it's the chicken and the egg. Yeah, it's going to be easier to look good when you have these freaking just insane receivers out there. Right. But yeah, he's still, dude. I don't know how he does it, man. He's older. He still hangs in the freaking pocket, takes incredible shots, and he just hangs in there right to the last minute. He throws in decent balls under that pressure. It's rough, man. And I much respect for him. You don't remember that. I don't know too much about this. All the way back when him and Eli Manning were coming out of college together. I don't even remember this, but Eli Manning was coming from Ole Miss and all the hype, being a Manning kid or whatever. And Big Ben was coming from like Miami, Ohio, which nobody had heard of. And he would actually have back then, he had like a PR team just basically come out and say, listen, dude, I'm as good as Manning. Like he really just like took it upon, took the Manning thing really personally. And, how I forgot, he obviously didn't get drafted number one, but for forever, like this is what I'm thinking about. Like he's always been the disrespected guy, And
then in the NFL, it was Brady. Everybody always talked about Brady and they're meeting in conference finals, but he just can't quite get over that hump. And even then when he does get a title, he never really quite got the credit he deserves.
Yeah.
This guy's one of the great 10, 15 quarterbacks of all time if you look at production and winning. I mean, look at this team with him. This team has been a contender every year. And if he wins one more title, he'll be right in that. And you
know what's interesting? Like, not to cross sports too much, but they had the the Michael Jordan documentary. I forget what it was called. The one that was on in the past like 6 months. Whatever it was.
Yeah, last
So like 30% of it was dedicated to how competitive like Michael Jordan was, like how he's like such a freaking prick on the golf course and some the other thing, and you just so competitive. And you hear that stuff like about like some athletes. I didn't get to hear the whole interview, but they were talking to someone who was on the Steelers, and they were talking about some pool tournament or some darts thing. Like, Well, obviously Ben was the favorite, you know, but because he just wins everything. Like Big Ben apparently is like that. He's like a freaking just sick person when it comes
I'm not going to go off on a tangent
for
too long, but I did spend there was a week, you know, there's a so, you know, we used to have the PCA for poker, obviously. We were down to the Bahamas. So, and that was wonderful. Like, you know, I spent my time down there, but my family would often be traveling, and they would come there at the end of their sailing trip. They would do a sailing trip in the Caribbean. They'd come there at the end. And it would always be a couple weeks after the PCA. So a couple times I went down and met them and sailed up with them. A couple times I stayed at the PCA and just hung around there with my girlfriend. But they have the golf celebrity tournament and everything. So Michael Jordan was out. I mean, everybody was out there. But Roethlisberger, I ended up playing blackjack with him for hours and hours one night.
Really?
He's a monster of a human being. The size of him is hard to explain because it's like everything, his arms, his hands. He just looks like almost like an overgrown, like he just kept growing and never stopped. And then they had these, Mike Piazza was hosting a softball game, so we went to that thing. Ben Roethlisberger hit balls that were literally probably about 600 feet. Like, I mean, he's just a monster of a man, but he was the most intimidating and most competitive. And like, even when we were playing blackjack, he was so focused. He didn't want people talking to him. It was bizarre. He just has that personality, you know? Anyway. All right, Sheets, you want to get out of here and then possibly
we'll get out of here. I hope that people didn't get too bored by the last like half hour of this, but
they like it.
Who cares? Okay, sounds good. So again, in summary, we did okay. Nobody made a fortune. Nobody lost all their money. I think process was good, and it was a difficult process for sure for me.
Definitely. All right, guys. We'll be right back with another video for you.
Okay.